Welcome to the Coach's Corner. Coach Clarence is an entrepreneur, financial expert, and passionate about helping people build and market their business. He has a creative flair for thinking outside the box and is always looking for the positive side of life. Now, here's Coach Clarence.
All right, everybody, welcome to Fit Over 40. I'm your host, Coach Clarence, and today I have Dr. Lynn Carey. She's earned a doctorate in chiropractic and a bachelor's degree in nutrition from Life University. She owned a practice in Wilmington, Delaware for 18 years and has traveled to Brazil and India. Dr. Carey loves empowering others to create their desired life of health, wealth, and a perfect self-expression. Today, she stays busy by pursuing her entrepreneurial dreams and homeschooling her teenage son. Dr. Carey, how are you?
I'm great, Clarence. How are you? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Well, I kind of gave the credentials, kind of give us a personal background of how you got to where you are now.
Yeah. So when I was 14 years old, I was diagnosed with scoliosis, which is curvature of the spine. And they wanted to brace me for I don't know if you've ever seen those braces, but the brace kind of goes from your armpits to the top of your hips and it wraps around you and it's like hard as a brick wall. Mm-hmm. And they wanted me to wear that for like 23 out of 24 hours a day until I was done growing. And I was just starting high school and it was just a nightmare. So when one of the orthopedic doctors said I would be a good candidate for surgery, I just went with it. I mean, all I knew was the medical world. So I had the surgery where they put the Harrington rods in my spine when I was 15. And I never had any problems before, but after the surgery, I was sick and in pain for all the time for about 5 years. And I kept going back to the doctor and saying, why do I keep getting sick? You know, none of these, the antibiotics or the painkillers, they don't help. I keep getting sick again. And they would just say, let me write you a stronger prescription. Nobody addressed that maybe the surgery wasn't good. Nobody addressed what were the reasons. So I just felt very, kind of depressed and desperate. And I went to college because, you know, that's what you do. And I was just trying to find myself. And someone gave me a pamphlet on the chiropractic profession. And I read the pamphlet and it said, the power that made the body heals the body. And I thought, why hasn't anybody said this to me in all these years? And I didn't even get adjusted. I just decided to go to chiropractic school. And I went, I think it was a God call. I went and it completely changed my life.
Wow. Okay. And so I'm curious, how did you correct that situation? Did you just outgrow it, or how did it, or through your studies of chiropractic, were you able to just adjust yourself?
Yeah. So I started learning a new way to look at the body and how the body heals. So the chiropractic philosophy is about recognizing and honoring there's an inner wisdom, and we call it innate intelligence that is always running the body. Because as we're sitting here, all our organs are working, right? We can't consciously do all those jobs if we try. So we started saying, hey, there's something bigger than us here that's running the body. And when we have symptoms, sometimes that's your body's way of letting you know it's either healing, rebalancing itself, or it's completely out of balance, you know, like if it becomes chronic. So we started to look at fevers, like they were a natural part. We didn't want to take a drug to suppress the fever because it has an important function to kill off all the stuff you don't need and then sweat it out and your body is better. It's stronger. Your immune system's stronger. So I realized, I'm like, oh, the medical world looks at the body completely different. Mm-hmm. You know, they usually just want to, and I had to learn what they were learning too, because I had to pass all these national board exams to get your doctor license, all this stuff. So I was seeing that they wanted to get all the names of everything you were feeling, the symptoms. They want to give it a big label so they could drug it or cut it out. So it was a completely different viewpoint. And I didn't think it worked very well, just from my own personal experience. And learning what was behind it didn't make as much sense to me as the chiropractic philosophy. So I was changing my mindset, and I was also getting adjusted, but it wasn't a quick fix. But I was told that it takes time to heal. And I only had time because I had tried everything else. So I'm like, why not give it a chance? So I was getting the body work done. I think it was It was getting me back in tune with my body. I was changing my mindset, and I was also losing my fear that I couldn't get better, So I was being very empowered. It wasn't like an overnight thing. It was a period of a few years, and it totally, and I got out of all that. I got out of all those cycles of being sick. Like I always had strep throat, needed an antibiotic. I got out of all the chronic pain I was in. It eventually started to rebalance, and I had my power back.
Mhm. So it sounds like you discovered more of an allopathic or naturopathic way of dealing with things, because a lot of doctors will just, like you said, deal with the symptoms. Take this hurts, take that, or this isn't working, we pull that out, or cut a piece of it out, whatever, to make it make sense. So kind of talk about some challenges you had going through this that other people might relate to.
Well, I think one of the biggest hurdles is not being afraid of the pain, because I think that's where everybody gets stuck. And I know for myself, when the pain would get really bad, you feel like you're in a panic because you can't escape it, and it's scary. And I think once I realized that it can get better, and I lost the fear that I'm actually getting worse, because sometimes you feel more as you're healing. Pain can be exasperated or become worse while the body heals itself. So it's like, if you can learn to honor the process, honor the pain, and that can be emotional pain, the mental pain, physical pain. If we can embrace those dark moments and not be afraid of it, I think we go through it faster, and we come through the other side more empowered. So I think that's probably the biggest thing, because I would see that even in my practice. It's the fear. The fear grips you when you're in that pain, and the fear grips, it keeps you in that cycle, longer than it has to be.
Mhm. So sounds like you're saying that fear is an inevitable part of just life, and your attitude about it definitely changes how things are going to happen with your life. Now, you mentioned your practice. Who do you typically see? What's your demographic?
So I don't practice anymore. I had a practice for 18 years.
Oh, okay.
And part of my dream was to break out of the practice. I struggled with
That's
that for a
everybody's
while.
dream.
I really wanted to become financially free, and I just felt like I outgrew my practice. I wanted to branch out as a chiropractor, as an entrepreneur, in the sense that I could help people more with their lifestyle, because I saw that was where people were really creating all the problems. Like I could adjust them all day long, but if they weren't working on themselves, emotionally, mentally, financially, healthy habits, all these things, is really how you achieve ultimate well-being. And I really wanted people to be independent. I wanted people to become their own best doctor, to be empowered in their life, because really, I can't do the work for someone. They have to do the inner work.
Mhm.
So, but when I had my practice, I saw all walks of life. I could adjust someone from a newborn to an elderly person, because I never focused on symptoms. For me, it was just wellness. It was about just adjusting the spine. If there was any stress in it, which would be like not proper motion, if that which puts pressure on the nervous system. So the adjustment for me was just adjusting someone to clear interference in the spine, so it was better brain body communication, which is better immune function. Because that's really how I got better. If people were trying to treat my symptoms, it would have been a circus. Really, it was by staying focused on the principle of just adjusting the spine where it needs it and letting the body do what it has to do. Eventually, you can move through all those chronic moments.
So now that you're out of the chiropractic business, like the brick and mortar side of it, what do you do now? Do you coach people? What do you do?
Yeah, I have coaching. So I have coaching, healthy habits, and also a business mentorship if people want to create another stream of income to become financially free. And for me, both of those avenues are about personal development, really working on yourself and removing the limiting beliefs inside, because that's, I believe, where we all get hung up, in different ways. And
Absolutely.
I also have a book where I shared my story, my healing story, because I just wanted to empower people that they can do it too. And I also created a masterclass. So it's a video course that if someone wanted to come see me in my office and get advice, I kind of put it in a video form. This is what I would tell people.
Wow. Okay. So how much of the chiropractic philosophy is in that, or did you just take principles and build off that based on your experiences?
I think, it's interesting, because I feel like for me, when I first heard that the power that made the body heals the body, it was like my whole life I was looking for meaning and why are we here? Because I just thought what I saw life was didn't make sense to me. The rat race and everybody just working hard all the time and still struggling and not many people happy around me. And I thought there has to be more to life. So when I heard that, it was a first truth for me. And it really started me on my healing journey, but then it became a very spiritual journey for me. And it opened my eyes to say, hey, maybe the mainstream system isn't the only way to do things, you know? So I started studying economics and money on my own, understanding relationship dynamics and codependency and family dynamics and things that really hold us back, and all the mindset involved in all these areas, health, wealth, relationships, because I realized they're all interconnected. And that's why I'm so big on people creating a desired life, because I feel like that's how you can really have ultimate well-being. Because people don't realize if you're going to a job you hate every day, eventually it can manifest as a disease in your body. And I think a lot of people don't always connect those dots. And I saw that very clearly being in practice, not only for myself and my own symptoms and patterns that I would go through, but then I would see it in lots of walks of life and different people.
Mhm. How much since you've made the switch to kind of the more mindset, finances, do you still coach nutrition, or did you kind of just leave that aside?
No, I still do. I don't think people should get hung up about their diets, because I see that becoming a stress too, that they take the joy out of eating.
Yeah.
But I think people should become mindful of why they're eating, stop when they're full, understand why are you eating? Are you stress eating? Are you really, and get to the point where you can honor your natural cravings, So I think it's important to get out the chemicals and the processed stuff, and even your personal care products. I think it's important to get the chemicals out as much as possible. Can you do it all the time? No. I mean, we live in a world that's full of the toxins, but I'm sure you could probably cut out 80%, make it a lifestyle. When you shop, you can get those things out of your diet. But then you can go out to eat and enjoy a meal, and I want people to get into that place where eating is an enjoyment. You're mindful, and when you're eating as clean as you might have to do a detox at first if you're going through stuff, that's fine. But then if you eat something that's not that clean or healthy for you, guess what? Your body gets rid of it real quick once you're clear.
Yeah.
So, and you don't crave it as much. You might have a craving for it. You eat a little bit and you're like, I think I had enough of that, because you can feel what it does to your body, So I think you become more naturally balanced in those areas than being like on a strict regimen, because I think that just makes life hard. I think life should be enjoyable.
I agree. I think when I coach people, I don't really give diets out. I give them guidelines, make sure they understand food and the groups and why this is important, why that's important. But again, not demonizing a certain food or putting more emphasis on one thing than another, because I think people get hung up and people actually think, hey, I eat healthy. And then I always say, well, define healthy for me. What does that mean to you? And then you get a lot of information and it's like, whoa, all right, we got to talk. So, you're traveling the world, talking to people. What is the biggest challenge you're seeing with people right now?
Well, I really, the last 3 years was a turning point for me. That's when I wrote my book, because I've been living this philosophy for myself, following a natural path for the last 25 years.
Mhm.
And I saw how much fear people were living in these last 3 years. I'm like, we cannot be living in this kind of fear that you're going to catch something, that kind of goes against how our body works, really. So for me, it was more important than ever. I felt like to get my message out, because part of me was like, well, I guess everybody has to get to this point on their own, right? Like I felt like sometimes I was talking to the wall, I feel like maybe I didn't talk as much, like I feel like I wasn't sharing as much because I felt like maybe I'm too far out there for some people. But after the last 3 years, I realized how important my message was. And I thought maybe now more than ever, it's time to share an empowering story. People need more inspiration of empowerment, of self-healing, of how we create our desired life. So it really solidified that I have an important message to share. And I think that's where my heart is right now.
Yeah. So you mentioned fear. This must have been like the COVID time when you said fear of getting something. Mm-hmm. How much of your practice, you mentioned earlier that you do some relationship coaching, and as far as that's a big deal. That's an interesting point, because part of my philosophy when I was doing Fit Over 40 was the mindset health and fitness and finances. And one of the topics that always comes up is relationships, because relationships get tricky. Sometimes people stay together when they have kids, and then when the children get older, they move out. And now these two people who are just kind of winging it have to deal with each other. And what do they do? I spoke to a young lady today. We were talking about how some people will sabotage themselves physically as a cover for trauma that's happened to them in the past. Do you see that at all? And how do you address it?
Definitely. And that's what I realized. And this may sound harsh. I don't mean for it to sound harsh, but I see that a lot of times we as humans will create disease because it's easier to deal with the disease than to subconsciously deal with the family drama you have going on. Because now you have time to heal. Like, it's socially acceptable. Like, now everybody has compassion for you if you have this label, right? You have this diagnosis. Oh, now you're allowed to take off. You have time to heal. You're allowed to change your lifestyle, or maybe we won't be so hard on you now because, it's like, okay, now we can get a break. Isn't that a shame?
Yeah.
That this is what we have to, but I mean, I'm not saying it's conscious, but this is subconscious. Because I even remember when I was in the hospital for my surgery, thinking this is better than my life. Like, at least I have a respite from my life, because I was exhausted from school every day, studying hard. Like, I was hard on myself, and I was always about, like, I had a job after school. You work hard and you don't really enjoy yourself. I come from that work hard ethic family. And I just thought, man, this is like a break from my life. And I always remember that, and kind of like in the back of my head. And then in practice, I saw this. I'm like, man, like, there's a lot to the emotional components of a disease. And it's also about energy flow. So it's not just that, but it's also like, if you're not dealing with the emotions, the mental stress, it's energy, right? So eventually it can get stuck in the body and manifest itself as disease or dis-ease, however you want to call it.
Mm-hmm. Tell me the title of your book. I didn't even see that. What was the title of your book?
It's My Journey to Grace.
Oh, My Journey to Grace. Okay. And is it a kind of a biography, or is it just really detailing you getting from A to Z in the situation you're in?
I would say it's a biography in my journey of going kind of from a depressed childhood, my struggles with my spine, and then finding empowerment and healing in a new way of life, how I raised my son naturally, and also what I found in practice, and all these things that you can do to create a desired life. So the subtitle is Shattering Mainstream Illusions and Creating My Desired Life. And I gave a lot of references, like a blueprint or an outline that somebody could follow to break out of the humdrum of life and really follow their desires. Because I feel like that's the hardest part. We don't always have a path to follow. We want to do something different. And I feel like that's where I wasted or spent a lot of time searching on, well, what is the alternative to this?
So,
there's not always that much information on those things.
Gotcha. So someone's watching this and they're hearing you say natural. Define that a little bit. Go a little bit deeper into what is natural versus, I guess, traditional.
Mm-hmm. So for me, I became very in tune with what my inner wisdom, like in my inner voice, following my inner intuition, my guidance. And that would be probably, I was reoriented from even like when I would be symptomatic with my body, I would be like, well, what is my body trying to tell me? Why is my throat sore right now? Am I speaking my truth? Why do I have this headache? Am I dehydrated, or am I like pushing myself too hard? Trying too hard? Is my low back out because money stuff's coming up, or did I strain myself, moving a certain way? So it's about really looking at what's your body trying to tell you, and correlating to what's going on in your life. Because I really saw that was the missing piece with people. They weren't, they would come in and say, oh, this pain just happened. And I said, well, are you more stressed out in life? And they'd be like, no, everything's the same. And they would tell me about their day. Yeah. And I was stressed out listening to it.
You were stressed out listening.
And I'm like, this level of stress has become their normal. So of course their body's going to break down, but they weren't connecting those dots at all. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. So for me, it's really about just getting in tune with yourself in that respect.
Wow. Interesting. Now, raising your child, did you homeschooled your son? How was that? Because there's this pressure from his friends to, hey man, you're not at school? How did you deal with that challenge of him I understand wanting to control the environment that he's in, but how did you balance him wanting to just be a young kid and not knowing the wisdom you had?
Yeah, no, I always kept it open for choice. So the thing is, he was raised differently in the sense that I had a home birth. He was not vaccinated. He was not circumcised. He's never even been to a medical doctor because he's never needed to go. He just turned 17.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so the most he's had is an Advil. He's never had antibiotics. He's never needed it.
Wow, that's very
I
remarkable.
breastfed him in the beginning, but then I always kept it open. I never restricted his diet. I tried to buy clean when I could or organic. I always let him choose how he wanted to eat, what he wanted to eat. I also always honored his interests. So he was involved in all kinds of activities. And it wasn't like I was saying, oh, you got to do this, this, and this. I was just like, does this interest you? And then we'd be in jujitsu. He loved it. He would be doing music. He loved it. And he'd stick with it. Like he was doing all these things. And then I did say to him, like, look, if you want to go to traditional school, you may like it. You can try it. And it was like the beginning of third grade year. He decided he wanted to go to school. And I put him in school. And he had an amazing, year. He loved it. And I would go, I was a little nervous going to like the teachers conference because I'm thinking, oh, they're going to say he's behind in this or, blah, blah, blah. And they would just say, we want to know what you're doing with your son, because if every student was like this, he loves to learn.
Wow.
And so it was really like a testament to me that I'm doing the right thing. But really, I've always been like, if we were all allowed to follow our own joy, follow our own thoughts, our interests and our mindset, because it's all in us. But we've all those little voices and all those things have been suppressed in us to fit in. So my thing was not to mold him in any certain way, but to listen to him, honor his voice, and a lot of times people think, oh, that means kids are going to go wild. Not really. It's almost the total opposite. Now he knows how to make good choices for himself because his voice is honored, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
I found.
So what are some tips for someone who is hearing this and like, I want my self-discovery? Give us 5 practical take-homes that people can start with right away.
Yeah. I think one of the greatest things I always say is journaling. And I think it's actually, do you like that too, Clarence?
I posted that in my fitness group today. Journaling is. Yeah, so that's awesome you said that. Yeah.
Because I think there's something about putting pen to paper, and because it gets you in tune with yourself. That it's a physical act to get in tune with yourself, right? And some people don't know exactly where to start. So I say there's different places you can start. You can start doing a gratitude list every day because it makes you focus on what you're grateful for. Things that inspire you, like you took a walk today and it felt amazing. I'm going to write that down. Or, I loved feeling the sunshine today. Or maybe you enjoyed the rain. The rain shower was cool, like it doesn't have to be these grand things. It's little moments. And I think they're key. If we get back to the little moments of joy, of what brings you inspiration, now you can have, when ideas come, write them down. Even if they're like stressful thoughts or bad thoughts, write them down because they're there to give you a message. It'll help you. You'll be able to walk yourself through it. Or maybe you'll come up to the right podcast that you need to hear, or the right book, or the right coach. Or, if you're having a health issue, you can find the right body worker to get you started. But the thing is that the answer isn't outside of you. All these things are different expressions and art forms that you can try to get you more in tune with yourself. The answers are within, and I think that's the connection people have to get to more. So I think the journaling is so empowering.
All right. So big on journaling. Okay. So is there any type of client that you feel like is beyond you helping that you say no to?
I think the only anybody who's going to reach out is probably at least open-minded. I think you just have to be open-minded. Some people are rigid. They don't want to know, but usually they're not going to come knocking on your door and asking either for help, So I think it's just about being open.
Gotcha. Yeah. Where they just say, listen, in order to be helped, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and admit things that are wrong, things that aren't going well for you. Awesome. So I assume your book is out on Amazon and just everywhere where you get books. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah,
So
it's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And I have a website too.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to ask you that. Where can people find you if they want to find out more about this? And how do they talk to you? Maybe they want a consultation.
Yeah. So you can go, my website is creatingmydesiredlife.com. So you can just go on there and you can ask me a question, and I'll even do like a free 15-minute Zoom call if you want, and we can go over things, see if I can help you out with anything, or if anything I have to offer is a fit.
What is the typical time a client is with you, generally speaking? Is it just depend on the severity of the situation?
Yeah, it just depends on what they're looking for and what they want. It might just be the 15-minute consult and that's it. Maybe they just get the book and they're like, okay, I'm good. Or some like healthy habits might be a 30-day program if they wanted to do that.
Well, you come across very confident and strong, like you don't take any stuff, so to speak. How if someone is going, I'm afraid of being judged. These are like when I tell people I'm going to have someone like you on, I get a couple questions to ask, and I've asked a couple of them already. One of the biggest ones I hear constantly when people are thinking about getting help or third party help, even though they don't know this person, there's this fear of being judged. So how do you're probably hearing horrible things in your life. I, as a trainer, I probably don't even know half the stuff you've heard, but I hear stuff. I mean, I've been doing this for 33 years, but I've heard, and you have to keep a space where you might hear something really wild, but not judge it and try to go, okay, this is really crazy, but let me put something to this so it makes sense. How do you deal with that? Because that's what someone asked me. Ask her, is she judgmental? Would she judge me if I share some really horrible things that I'm doing? Self-admitted.
That's a great question because I never thought about it, but yet I'm always worried about being judged. I think that's been part of my journey is I was an only child, always worried about being perfect, always putting on the perfect front for my mom, for my family, for my, what I thought I was supposed to be. And I think that's been part of me becoming my authentic self and letting that image go was probably the most painful thing. And I'm still working on it. So I think I have a lot of compassion for that. And I think the thing is if somebody can be honest about the drama, that's amazing because now they're really open to changing because that you have to embrace the darkness in order to make the transformation. That's what I find. Like you can't be ashamed. You can't carry around the shame, the guilt, the obligation, all this stuff because it weighs heavy on you. That's where the disease starts, festering. So it's so important to get that stuff out, and if you have to find the person who you trust and who you resonate with in order to open yourself up. You might not feel that with everybody. So that's why I always tell people, even like finding the right chiropractor or finding the right massage therapist or whatever you're looking for, you got to find the right person who you resonate with their energy. You feel like you connect with them.
Gotcha.
That's important.
Okay. So I always like to get people to know a little bit about you personally. We already know a little bit about your family. You mentioned your son, you married, do you got a boyfriend? People want to know these kind of things. What's your social status, if you will?
Oh, that's so funny. No, I'm single.
Okay.
And I never felt the need to be married. I always wanted to be financially independent, find my own. I wanted to know why we're here. I wanted to create a life for myself and be financially free. Because to me, I didn't see that. And I think my dad died when I was young.
Oh.
So there was a couple things. Like I saw him go. So I thought, okay, even if you love the person, they may not be there. Like you're not guaranteed to grow old with that person.
Absolutely.
And I see some people who their spouse dies and that person dies with them.
Yes.
I'm like, I don't want to be like that because you're not guaranteed to go out together. So we're obviously here. You're not born at the same time. I mean, I guess twins can be. But I contemplate these things. And then I saw people in my family that were married years and years because they were strong Catholic family, right? But it looked more like a prison sentence than a happy marriage. I'm like, I don't want that either.
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of had to figure out my own path. And I think for me is when I found my gray state, like after a couple years in practice and I did some mission trips, I brought chiropractic to Brazil and India. I went to this very high level of awareness it just kind of happened. And I think it was from the work I was doing on myself, the body work I was getting done. It's kind of a place that I say it's the gray state is what I call you. It's like falling in love, but there's no other person there. Like you're just in this high vibe. And I went into that place for like 18 months and I realized I'm like, oh, this is what everybody's looking for. I'm not saying you can't have all the material things or a great relationship. You can have all that. But the thing is, people think those things are going to bring them the lasting happiness and peace that they're looking for. They got it backwards. That's already in you. You're trying to uncover it. Find that place and then create your life from that inside out place. And that's what I've been doing. So once I feel like I found that gray state, I'm like, oh, now all the dots connect. I understand why we're here. We're here to create heaven on earth. We're here to really embrace our joy here on earth and live that love vibe. And because when you're in that high vibe, all that nonsensical problems that we get hung up on, they become meaningless. I'm not saying you don't get caught up in the drama sometimes, right? We have our ups and downs, but it's not the same as when before I had my gray state. Like before those things would hold me deeper. Now I'm like, oh, okay, this is just darkness coming up, or this is just stuff I'm going through. I understand this is going to lead me to something else. I'm gonna have an awakening from this experience. I get that. So I believe that's really that. I think that's why I found so much peace and happiness within myself. I'm very grateful because I didn't feel that the whole time I was growing up. So for me to find that in my 20s and to just keep growing more as I get older, because I'll just turn 49. I feel very blessed in that respect.
Awesome. And what do you do for recreation? And when you're not coaching, what do you do for fun?
I just, I like to just be out in nature. I love the beach. I love taking walks. I love hanging out with my son. I like to read. I'm a big reader. I do like to travel some. The last couple of years kind of dampened it a little bit for me. I didn't like all the restrictions and stuff. So, but I do enjoy exploring new places and meeting new people and seeing new cultures. I do enjoy that.
That's awesome. All right. And the last is the D, and that's for dreams, both professionally and personally. What are your dreams?
Yep. So I'm still working on becoming financially free. That's been my biggest goal. I feel like I have figured out so many different things. Even I got very into understanding the Constitution the last 3 years. I studied that and how going local in our counties can make a difference in our governmental area, because sometimes we think we can't do anything because we think we have to start at the top.
Right.
But I'm realizing it's really becoming involved in your local government, in the commission meetings, in the mayor, right? And I learned a lot about that in the last 3 years, that if these last 3 years didn't happen, I might not have figured that piece out. So for me, the final piece is really just figuring out, like, solidifying my business, because it kind of got derailed the last 3 years. Because the 3 years before, what I had started doing, I had retired my practice and I was doing a lot of networking, in-person events and all these things. And it all stopped. So I had to learn to go online and do more things virtually, which I'm not that much of like a tech person, an online person, but I had to, it kind of had to shift. So that's the piece that's coming together for me now.
Awesome. That's awesome. All right. Well, again, I appreciate you coming by my neighborhood and sharing your gifts. Again, let everybody know where they can get the book and where they can find you.
Yep. It's creatingmydesiredlife.com. That's my website. You can find my book there or contact me there.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for coming by. Everybody, this is Dr. Lynn Carey, and we'll see y'all next time.